My first question for both you ladies: did you experience any second thoughts about sharing your story once filmmaking began?
Mm. I'll let you go first.
Uh, so I don't know if it was second thoughts about it. I just didn't know if I was gonna be here by the end of it. So I
Mm,
felt anxious because there were so many things happening to me while we were filming that I wasn't I wasn't really sure about. Like, that was kind of one of the,
Mhm.
like, we had the conversation without having the conversation.
That is true. If for those who were in the room earlier when I said I was learning as I was doing, and it was time sensitive because there was a time where not only Yetunde, but also Shirley, they weren't doing well. And so I knew it was important to get the story out for a number of reasons. One, to be a resource for those walking through this journey, right? But also, what wasn't communicated to the ladies when we started on this journey is really if this was going to be, you know, dare I say, in our own words to our children, right?
mm,
So never put it out there, but understanding that that was always part of it, and knowing that for that reason it was time sensitive, and archiving the stories and the information organically was super important. So to answer your question, Bill, no, there were no regrets, no second guessing. If anything, as the filmmaker, I felt pressured, right? And not in a bad way, but I did feel pressured to both learn how to do this, right? Since I've asked these women to trust me with their stories, um, and bring it on alongside mine, right? But
mm.
also to do it in a timely fashion, knowing that it was big, it was always bigger than us, but it also was about our children as well.
Okay. And you know what? As you mentioned that, I would have never known that about Yatunde or Shirley. That based on their health, that they weren't doing well, as far as like with that in the film. So that's really, you know, thank you for sharing that and being opening my eyes to that. Actually, that was a really you kind of segued into my next question a little bit. I was going to ask you, what challenges did you face, Tamara, as making this documentary film?
So some of the challenges that I faced, like I said, was the time pressure, right? And
Hmm.
nobody put that on me but me, right? So
Okay.
I own that, right?
Okay.
But equally, it was hard because again, I'm interfacing with all of them. Plus, I'm dealing with my own stuff, right? So, for
Mm,
instance, I'll give you, for instance, Laura lives in Virginia. Barbara was in Massachusetts, right? And so
okay.
driving long distances, and maybe that doesn't feel long to other people, but anything over like 2 hours, and even 2 hours may be pushing it for me. My body goes into a whole different
Mm,
need, right? And so it was a lot of preparing for those road trips. And then on top of it, then having enough energy to film and do what was necessary. And so it was like again, making sure I had everybody's story and dealt with it with integrity, and being concerned about what other members were going through at the same time, but at the same time that up against my own challenges and limitations.
okay. Um, Two terms that came up. You mentioned this one, Tamara, safe haven, and I think it was maybe Barbara who mentioned sacred spaces. Like as
Mhm.
far as with that, it just feels like not only just like creating that sacred space or that safe haven for yourself in your lives, but also with knowing what you've shared with me about the participants. Like for the participants in the invitation, this was really a sacred space for them to really hold their story, to share their stories.
Absolutely. I'll actually let Yetunde speak to that since she
Yeah.
was a participant and what that experience, I think that's what you're asking, what that experience was like and what was it like to have a space.
I was going to segue that to her
Okay,
after.
okay. No, no, I didn't know. I'm not trying to do your job, bro. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to make sure I understood what you were asking. So
Okay.
I'll tag your it.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll be it. You know, there's a danger in giving somebody else your story because
Mhm.
you don't know how it's going to be presented. Once
Right.
you put it out there, it's up for interpretation, right?
Mhm.
And how it's spun may not necessarily be what you intended it to be. But
Okay.
I don't think that that was difficult because we have a personal relationship outside of the film. So
Right.
I was able to, I don't know how comfortable I would have felt if it was somebody else, right? If
Mhm.
somebody came to me and said they were interested in my story, I'd be like, ooh. Like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't really engage. But given the fact that I know who she is as a person, I was willing. But also, it was helpful to me as I was healing, um, because even in the hospital, she'd be like, "Oh, take a picture of that," like she was. We were documenting the whole, process in a way that felt authentic to me, that
Mhm.
didn't take away from who I am as a person and didn't misrepresent me. So I think that she held a safe space for me.
Okay.
And what I will say to that, though, is for me in documenting everything, it was important for me, even though you see everybody in the film is not brown, right? But I will put that out there. It was important for me to have our voices and our experiences lifted up because usually I'm not saying that there are not other um documentaries or films about what it means or what it looks like to live with chronic illness. But what I will say is overwhelmingly we're not represented in those films, right?
Sure.
None of this is monolithic, right? Each of us have a unique story and a unique experience. However, our voices need to be in that conversation as well. One, it normalizes for those who are brown like us, right?
Mhm.
That hey, I hear you. You're going through this too. And also it lifts up, again, not saying the choices that we made will be beneficial to everyone, but just to put it out there that hey, sis, or bro, right? I lift up women because we overwhelmingly are affected by autoimmune disease versus
Mhm.
men. However, but it is to say, hey, not only do we experience this, we have choices in this. And
Sure.
again, that was part of the safe space that I was cultivating with the film as well.
Okay. And that's a good point because in the film you did have the statistic about 75% of autoimmune disease affects women. Um, Yatende, this next question is definitely, I think one of the most powerful statements that I heard from your interview was the doctor's comments to you,
Mm.
like with that. And your response, that was just brilliant. Um, Let me ask you this based on that, because just as Tamara was speaking about, as far as like with uh, spaces for Black and Brown people, after that moment happened, does that comment or make you feel uncomfortable trusting medical professionals going forward? Since there's always been this, um, we've had like things like the Tuskegee experiment, uh, as far as like within history or seeing how the medical profession has affected Black and Brown people. Does that make you leery of going forward or, before treatment?
That's a good question.
So I don't trust anybody. I don't care what color you are. I'm just gonna be honest. I check
Okay.
everything, right? But I I feel doctors are practicing medicine, right?
Mhm.
Which means that they're taking guesses, and we're hoping those guesses are educated, right? And
Right.
at a point in the hospital, I had a spreadsheet going and looking at my numbers and looking at the research and seeing what has been effective. I felt that I couldn't leave my care to my doctor because
Right.
at this point you've already told me I should be dead. So you don't like, I'm already dead to you. So
Mhm.
any improvement that I experience, you're good with because you've already shut the coffin on me. So I just I wouldn't say that it's I don't trust doctors, but I don't trust doctors. I do my due diligence and I always want to know what else could be ruled out. What other options do I have? May I have a second opinion? What what has proven to be effective for this condition? But the problem that I ran into was they don't have a case study for it. All of the things that I went through, like it was kind of like a domino effect that they haven't seen together.
That is true. Yetunde's autoimmune disease is very rare. And that
Mhm.
too, all autoimmune disease, right? So there's over 80, but there are some categories of autoimmune disease, just to interject, that are so rare, like so rare, and dress is one, right? And
Mhm.
so even how to come up with a formulary, right, to really attack it, and also what I hear from you, Tunde, is it's like to understand the limitations of medical professionals. So not a don't listen to them. However, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, it's important to do your own research and your due diligence because again, it can be, even if it was one of the more well-known autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, it's still not one size fits all. And when you're dealing with a medical professional that is dealing with you in such a way, it can be hazardous to your health because what they may be offering may not be good for you.
Just even
Mhm.
how it's presented.
Yeah.
It's like just like with the liver failure or organ failure. I mean, because I had all kinds of failure, right? I was dealing with heart failure. I was
Come,
dealing with
come on.
oh sorry.
No, no. I just want them to see your
Oh,
beautiful face. Go ahead.
I was dealing with heart failure. I was dealing with liver failure. I was dealing with kidney failure, right? And so I didn't want those. And it wasn't that I was in denial. I just had to understand that this is where I am right now, but this
Mhm.
is not where I want to stay. So anytime they would give me something negative, I'd be like, I hear you, but that's not what I want on this piece of paper, like on my meal ticket. You
Mhm.
have to put low sodium because that's the same diet
Yeah.
that is given to
The
somebody.
mental dynamic, right?
Right, because the thing
Yeah.
is, once you accept that you are dying, you will die. For me, that was my
Mhm.
belief was I'm not gonna make it out of here. They keep telling me I'm dead. Like
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
reject that. And I understand that part of it was, listen, we don't believe that you have much time based on what we've seen. We don't think that
Mhm.
you actually have time. And thank God today makes 3 years. Um,
Literally, yes. Happy
today, yeah.
anniversary.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
Today makes 3 years, and I went to the doctor last week, and he was like, "Wow, I'm surprised you're still alive." And I told him, I said, "Don't start with me. Like, no, like
Mhm.
we're not doing this again. Like, I'm here to stay, you know." But
Right.
part of it's how we get through our illnesses based on what we believe.
Okay. Well, congratulations on 3 years anniversary.
Thank you.
And Yetunde had talked about faith as far as like that as part of what is things that were part of our coping mechanisms and skills as far as along with affirmations and family. My question to you, Tamara, can you talk about the importance of faith as part of your new normal?
Well, faith is always with me. Like,
Okay.
for those who don't know me, I am a ordained reverend, right? So, um, faith is all my faith always carries me through. For the film, even though it may not have seemed like I was lifting that up. I wanted I wanted one for the participants to organically share their experiences the way they wanted to. But
Mhm.
equally, I wanted to be very mindful on my end that it not be totally capsuled as a faith-based film. If and
Okay.
here is why. Because sometimes, as much as faith is a pillar of strength for all of us, because all of us, Laura, I went to seminary with, right? So just to connect the dots for everyone, right? Shirley too spoke of faith. Heck, her brother that was speaking life over her is a reverend as well, right? So faith was threaded all through. But I wanted to be very careful on my end, where for those who are challenged by faith, right, or even
Mhm.
maybe experiencing a crisis of faith due to what they are going through, that not be a barrier from them getting the information,
Okay.
if that makes sense, right?
Oh yeah.
So hold on to something like Yetunde. I think the way Yetunde put it at the end, you have to have something to hold on to, right? Now,
Mhm.
for us, is God, point blank, period. But if that is not who it is for you, that is okay. But you have to have some support, have something to anchor you, because a lot is coming at you at any given moment. That is the moving target of why this is even talking about, finding your new normal when it's a moving target, because we're constantly making decisions based on the information we have at a particular time. And the decision that we made at one particular time may be valid and may work, right? And help progress us forward, or, decrease the progression of illness, but then something else can come up and then we have to choose all over again. So it's a whole cycle of restarting in essence, right? So you have to have something that is absolute in your life.
Okay. And Tamara, one of the comments that towards the end of the film you mentioned, as far as like things I can control, one of those being the first things of showing up. And my question to you, Yatende, what is the first thing that you can control as far as with that?
In terms of, um, but it's choosing, right?
Okay.
And I don't always have to show up, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes there's this pressure, right, that people are depending on you. And part
Mhm.
of this thing is self-preservation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Part of this
Okay.
is choosing when to not show up, choosing to say, I don't feel like having this conversation right now.
And being okay with not showing up, because I just don't have it. It doesn't mean that I don't love you or I don't care about you, but equally being fair to that person, right? Particularly that's something that we didn't have time to talk about, and I just want to just talk about for a quick second. Relationships are going to change for everybody that is
Mhm.
listening to us. Relationships are going to change, absolutely, unequivocally. So there is going to be grief around, what your body is doing and what you cannot control, right? There's going to be grief around, the old you versus the now you, right? There's going to be grief around those relationship dynamics, right? Because everybody is not going to be, unfortunate as it may sound, everybody is not going to be equipped to journey with you, right? But part of loving someone and appreciating the season that they were in your life is saying that, you know what, I love you enough to let you go if that is what needs to be, because right now I cannot compromise my health, right? Because I can't fight you and fight for my health. Like
Right.
that they can't coexist, right?
Right.
It's not
Sure.
negotiable. It's not negotiable. So you deal with the loss of all these things, and it's ongoing. It's a revolving cycle, right? But just preparing yourself for those things, but accepting part of this is letting people, places, and things go.
Okay. All righty. Um, this actually is a question for both of you. I'm not going to throw one and tag team on the other. So just so to give you the heads up. Shirley mentioned in the film when you were interviewing her, Tamara, that you asked her the question, what are you going to hold close after after her retirement? So my question to you both is, what did you two hold close after the invitation was made?
Mm. I'll quickly say this. I held close the conversations I was able to have with my son. My
Okay.
son now has seen this film twice, and it opened a pathway for us to have a conversation, because honestly, there was a time where it's like I was like fatigue was my biggest symptom, right? So sleeping a lot, for instance. And I remember even with a medical professional as it related to him, and they ask you all these questions. Is there anything new that maybe um maybe influencing behavior, all these other things, right? And I remember choking up with telling that person, my son is like, mommy's always sleeping. I couldn't get it out, right? But
Mm.
now the film has given my son language, right? And does he understand everything verbatim? No, he doesn't. But he understands enough that we can have these constant conversations even outside of the film. He'll just come with randomly asking me certain things like that. You still got autoimmune disease? Yes, baby, I do, right? But he has been able to see, he has been able to see the change in his mom and just how I've been able to show up more effectively. So that's what I hold close. It gave my son some vocabulary, or at least the tools in his mind and how he processed things, because he's like months away from being 10, so he's young, just for context, for those of you out there, you know and for him to develop the questions the way he would understand, and for me to answer them in a way that he would understand.
Okay. What about you, Yetunde?
I think it's what I hold close are the experiences, right? That um, I'm more intentional about the things that I do, but also the documentary opened an avenue for me to actually engage my family because when
The
I
conversations, yeah.
the conversations I had with my siblings when I got sick, my siblings are you saw my elder sister in the documentary, and she went into um, you know, CFO mode, and she was like, "This is what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen," and everybody was just moving according to those marching orders to make sure that I was okay. But I was able to talk to my siblings about where they were when they found out this thing happened and how it was for them. But like for my birthday party, I had a Disney themed birthday party, Iwaju, which means the future in Yoruba, and it's kind of like moving forward. And
Mm.
Tam was there.
Yeah. I got to show the film, and I'm like, you want to do that at your birthday party? But it was a bomb, y'all. But go ahead.
But it was just kind of like having the opportunity to engage my family because, even though them having more information about what is going on with me allows them to be bigger advocates for me. But something that was surprising for me was my son. He had an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
And he was like, Mom, I didn't realize all those things happened to you. And for him, it's like now he's just starting to understand because even though I was going through all those things, he was kind of shielded from it, so he didn't really understand. So I think the invitation gave me an opportunity to have more authentic conversations.
Yeah, it has been a conversation starter for sure.
Okay. And it's interesting that you bring up family with that because we did see Yetunde's family. We saw your family, Tamara, your husband, Damon, who appeared on there. And then also at your birthday celebration, your 50th birthday celebration as well. And then also Shirley at her retirement party, as well as, was it Laura, her husband? Yes. And it seems like that you all have become like maybe tomorrow like an extended family because you all have that as far as like that with the autoimmune disease, even though it's like everybody's experience is different, but you can all relate to what's going on. And this is my question: are you still in touch with the other participants?
Absolutely. I can give y'all an update real quick. So, Barbara is still managing her illness with food
Hmm.
successfully. Actually, Laura is too. So she's sort of like in remission.
Okay.
And y'all didn't know it in the film because we did a good way of hiding it. But she was pregnant again, and so she since has had her second daughter. So yeah,
Congratulations to her.
Shirley is still, it's again, it's ebbs and flows, but Shirley is still thriving as well, going to her treatments and stuff. So
Mhm.
everybody's, there has been some ebbs and flows because that's autoimmune disease, but everyone, even with the ebbs and flows, is doing rather well.
Well, thank you for the update. And I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. My question for you tomorrow, was there any information missing or that you wish you could have included and you
Lots.
did?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Lots. That was like a half an hour. And I hope to do it was always my hope to do a series about
Okay.
autoimmune disease because I just know there's just so many pieces to it. For one, I would love to do something more in depth on one particular, on like different autoimmune diseases. But also, I'm curious about, and maybe the women, some of the women that are on with us today can, give me some insight in it because I would love to see how autoimmune disease is treated around the world in different parts of the world
Mm,
because I have had the privilege to have some very unique conversations with various individuals, some of which did not live in the US, and just how stigmatizing autoimmune disease is. I think in one place in the Philippines, one person was telling me it's almost kind of like what is diagnosed is a mental health thing versus the autoimmune thing because in
wow.
that case, yeah, it's deep. Because particularly psoriasis is a form of is an autoimmune disease, but being that you're dealing with external like patches and stuff like that, and just how that informs for the someone's mental and emotional health. This being diagnosed for the mental health part of it, but not connecting it to this is why, because when these patches occur and these things occur, these flares occur, and it changes my appearance, how people respond to me, right? So it's just this interesting thing. That's just one example of many, but I would love to do something very specific, specialized, how autoimmune disease is treated, in different places of the world.
Okay. Well, you did mention as far as like knowing the thoughts of the women in the room. We did get in the chat. Laura Lopez was made a comment about. I was about to say that the relationship between mental health and autoimmune disease. I think that's a perfect segue to open up the Q&A to the audience because if you have any questions for these ladies, now please feel free to say something if that's all right with you tomorrow.
Oh no, totally. Great segue. You want to start us off, Laura, since you put it out there already? Can you come off mute? Or do you need permission to go?
Oh,
Awesome.
thank you. I felt I was put on the spotlight. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and I really loved the video. I mean, I have a close friend going through a diagnosis, and I've seen like how this has really changed all her dynamics, like everything, like her work, her ambitions, her goals, her family, like everything. It's not just you're literally living with a diagnosis for life, and it's not a death sentence, it's not the final thing. You just need to learn to live with it, take like every day as it comes, just keep moving forward in whatever works for you. Make the people that is treating you understand your needs, because I feel that's something very important. Like when I am myself, like I am a doctor, and I feel that when we treat people like if they are, just generally and not individualized care, like when we don't really listen to them and say like, okay, this person needs this, how can I actually manage that? Like how can I actually meet this person expectation? And I feel that it's humanity what is missing in a lot of these scenarios.
Mm,
And it was lovely to actually see that in your video and see how everyone is relatively doing well and have gone through everything. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences. Is great.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for sharing, Doc. That means a lot, that affirmation. One thing I will say, because we talked about mental health, I mean, granted, also, I said I was a minister, but I am also a mental health professional, and I specialize in trauma. And a lot of times with chronic illness, even outside of autoimmune disease, but I will say chronic illness, people endure medical trauma, right? From procedures or tests, all of these things affect the mental health, and just being sick can affect your mental health, right? Because you're affecting, I mean, your body is affected. That includes your brain, your mind, will, and your emotions, right? And so I'm a big advocate on therapy. Now I know that, culturally for some that may not work well, right? For a host of number of reasons. But again, even if you can't have somebody formally trained, it helps if you do, because it's a neutral place. You don't have to try to protect other people's feelings. You get to authentically just feel, right? And we definitely need permission to feel. But if you can't be with a professional, I would say, to the best of your ability, try to identify that one person. You don't need a group of people, but at least one strong support person that will allow you to authentically be. Because that's important. Again, you can't manage other people's emotions, right? And also try to manage what's going on with you. Equally, I just want to put it out there, because some people get upset. I see this a lot with people that I work with. Like, people get upset with friends and family and stuff about them not being supportive. And, some, yeah, they're just not supportive. But others, they just don't have the tools. And that's why I say, if you can go to a professional, we have the tools. Your friends and your family, as well intentioned as they would like to, they just don't have the tools, right? They don't have the training, right? And the know-how. And so it's not that they don't want to be there, they don't even know how to be there. And sometimes people want to be there and they don't know how to be there in healthy ways. Because yes, you need room to feel, but at the same time, you need that person that can motivate you as well when you're not feeling your best. Because if you sit in a place long enough, especially when it comes down to depression, that is where it gets really scary and can get dark, and people can get impulsive, and it just turns into something else. So that's what I was up with that.
Yeah. I was going to also add, like, to your comment, our loved ones may have good intentions, but they may not know how to properly communicate that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're working with a trained professional who has the training and the knowledge and the skill base to help you, as far as like with guiding you to, as far as like with, okay, how can we be able to process this depression that you might be experiencing or going through,
Or anxiety,
dealing with
right?
this,
Like,
or
another
the
thing that,
anxiety? Yes,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Like, what
because
is
this is a life
gonna be?
changing transition. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, 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 total. No, it's conversation now. We're good. Because it's not always depression, it's anxiety. Like, oh my God, I
Mhm.
gotta do another test. What is this test gonna say? And what is that gonna mean? And what is this medication? And this now, I'm having these symptoms. And if I take this pill, what side effect? I mean, it's a lot. No,
Mhm.
but I'm trying to normalize it, right? I'm not trying to say, hey, we're thriving over here, and there are nothing to contend with, because I always want to be honest. um but even though it's a lot, it can be manageable, right?
Sure.
I
Mhm.
mean, but you've done things to manage it, right? And you're like,
Mhm.
in terms of work, right? Because even me, sometimes I've gone to work and I've had bosses say, "Oh, so nice of you to show up," and it's like, you don't even
You don't
understand.
understand the struggle.
But the
It
thing is,
is nice of me to show up.
like, did you miss me?
It's nice that I can show up today, because today is a good day. Yeah, please and thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Passive aggression is
Mhm.
a huge thing in the workplace. But some people are lucky, have been able to change
Absolutely.
their work situation and kind of
Anywho,
different.
some more questions, please.
Yes. Anybody else have any additional questions or comments or feedback for the ladies?
Oh, Caitlin has her name. Kathleen, I'm sorry. Come on. Come on,
Okay.
for me.
Go ahead, Kathleen. You can put yourself off mute. And if you want, you can also put yourself on video.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I would love to see y'all wonderful faces.
I'm trying. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, my clicking wasn't being effective. What I wanted to say was that, well, first of all, thank you, because the whole experience is inspirational. But the favorite thing that I took from this, or my top thing, was one of the statements that Yetunde made, which was when she was describing um, having control over the thoughts that she was having, and writing the things on the mirror. And when she said, if you don't have something playing in your head, what you will hear is what's being played to you. And I think that that just really, it just not only translates to that situation, but just to life in general, about, you know, not letting other people control the narrative that's in your own thoughts. And you know, as you know, Tamara's a mental health professional. I figure that's got to be one of the most healthy ways of thinking
Absolutely.
imaginable. So, you know, I cheers to you for that.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
All right. Anyone else?
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else? We still have less than 8 minutes.
I also want to say, I know some people who came in late. If you want to see the film again, I can put the link in there. It is on Vimeo and it can be rented for like 3 days. So I'll put the link in the chat just in case you want to see it again.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Y'all are very quiet. So if we gave you a pop quiz on autoimmune disease and the invitation, you're all going to pass with 100%.
Everybody like stupid.
They would
Okay.
do great. What are you talking
Okay. Well, I'm
about?
seeing 2 hearts going up. Is it Kashana and also Laura?
Hello, it's Kashana. Congratulations, everyone. So powerful.
Oh, thank
Thank you.
you. And hey, Krishana, just saw you last week, girl.
Yay.
We outside.
Alrighty. Anyone else?
Okay, I have another question.
Mhm.
And it goes in like, sorry, and it goes related with don't let the other people like drive the narrative. And it's funny because I was actually talking this with my friends yesterday, and it was learning to say no, which I think you mentioned before as well.
Yes.
And how do you actually, how do you actually learn to say no? Like, if you are entering a conversation that is uncomfortable, but I don't know, I'm speaking with my mom and she asked me how I am, and I actually really don't want to answer that. Then you enter like a conversation, you don't really want to answer, and all of that could have been prevented by saying no. And I mean, this is just an example, but it can be taken into other contexts. So how did you learn to yeah, basically take ownership of that narrative and, say no?
Want to go first?
I think that for me, saying no is difficult because of my family dynamic. I
Mhm.
come from a family that has a village mentality in terms of I am your brother's keeper and everybody is involved in everything, which is great in terms of like I never like while going through what I was going through, I never really wanted for anything. But you know, sometimes you have in every family there's a cheerleader. You have that person that keeps telling you keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, like the family motivator that is telling you like don't stop, don't stop. And I'm like, I had to tell, you know, and they're like, oh, your son is watching you. And I had to tell him that's great that he's watching me because he needs to see that mommy needs a break, you know, and not making it a fight, you know, because before I would get defensive, but I had to like kind of go back and say, okay, where is this thing coming from? It's coming from a place of care. It's coming from a place of, I don't want you to give up and I don't want you to fail. And it's coming from a place of, this is how I cope. and this is what I deem to be successful. So acknowledging why they're doing it and telling them you appreciate their concern, but this is what I'm going to do is kind of what I've been doing and what has been helpful in avoiding conflict, instead of saying no, 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 saying yes, I hear you. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. And this is what I'm going to do.
I agree 100% with what Yetunde said. What I will add for me, in exercising my no, especially with what I am, right? This therapist. And when I was diagnosed, because we were in the height of the lockdown, like we were in our house, in our homes, right? So, and everything was proliferated, like all of the trauma and the stress and all of that kind of stuff, the needs of my clients were just insurmountable, right? But I understood that if I didn't pause, if I didn't get to a place to carve out to take care of me, I wouldn't be there for them, right? So not just clients, but just my family as well. If I am the instrument and I am not well and I collapse, guess what? Everything else collapses around me, right? And so that, Laura, is what helped me with my no, to understand that if I don't stop, if I don't pause, if I don't slow down, um, then everything around me is going to be affected. Not because I didn't show, not because I showed up, right? But because I was not not even 100% of myself, but I didn't take care of me. So everything is gonna fall anyway. So I hope that answers. And also, I guess what I will add into it as well, and I understand what I'm about to say because you tuned to kind of alluded to this. I say this from a place of understanding the privilege in it. I had gotten to a place in my career where I could step away and take what I needed, right? I know that is not always the case. But when I was first diagnosed, I couldn't do that. I still was working for a place. I could not immediately leave. So, what I did for those variables that I could control, the good thing, the good and the bad was, like I said, we was in a lockdown. So, I was in the safety of my home. And so, I created space within my home to really pour into my mental emotional wellness, even as I was figuring out this new diagnosis and trying to show up for others. And it really is sometimes identifying that, whether for me that was therapeutic oils, for me that was in between clients, allowing myself time to close my eyes or to go get some, fresh air. It was really that those little things that kept me going until I could walk away.
I think for me, it was going to Costa Rica.
Well, that's new. You
Yeah.
didn't even tell them about
But that's
Costa
part
Rica.
of my recovery, was like going somewhere else and experiencing a different form of holistic health, and exploring movement like as medicine. So I just think,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else? Because I think our time is almost up. We have less than a minute.
Well, if not, I just want to say thank all of you so much. I hope that we are able to keep in touch. I know several of you um, registered different ways, whether it was through the app or through Eventbrite. So I hope that we can stay connected via email or such. And being that this is a Zoom, I guess I could share the Zoom link if somebody wants to play it back. Like I said in the chat, I did put the link if somebody wants to view the movie again. All proceeds from the movie, when it's rented, go to the Impact campaign, which is on Instagram. Because my hope is, and for those, I'll just put this out there, for those of you who are in the US, not that I'm opposed to coming abroad, but that just would be a little more involved. I want to this is for the public. It is for the community, and to raise awareness and to have conversations like we had today. So I am not. I welcome the opportunity if you want to organize something with your civic group or your NGO or whatever, your family, for the docs on here, your colleagues, right? Of how we can better support individuals who are living with autoimmune disease.
Okay. All right. If no other questions or comments or feedbacks, once again, Tamara, thank you for this opportunity for
Thank you for
showing.
hosting. Yes, yes.
Oh,
And thank you for Barb in the background
yes.
doing my tech. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for showing up from around the world. I truly, truly appreciate all of you.
All righty.
Thank you. Take care. Good night. Bye.
Good night, all.